Welcome to another episode of An Extraordinary Take, where we share extraordinary ideas and visions with extraordinary people. My name is Bo, your host, and I'm so excited that you were able to join me for this episode. Let's get into it, shall we?
Hi, everybody. As always, my name is Sibonisile Ngubane Kosa, and I am your host. Welcome to An Extraordinary Take, where we share extraordinary ideas and visions with extraordinary people. I am so excited again to be sitting on this chair and readying myself for yet another conversation with you. Today was a bit of a rocky one. It almost didn't happen. I got to the studio and the key to the actual studio was lost. I didn't even want to leave the house. I literally had to drag myself out of here. I almost thought we wouldn't be able to do it, but I'm glad that it happened and that we're here. And I'm learning a lot about navigating sort of like unfavorable situations, if I can say. I'm also going to be using my phone today because even my notes didn't print on time. So it's one of those, but I see what the universe is doing because it's kind of in line with what I was coming here to speak about anyway today. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of living in unfavorable circumstances or living in seasons that you did not pray for, or, living in seasons that you feel like you didn't ask for, that you feel like you don't need, that you feel like aren't necessarily conducive to where you're trying to go. And I say this because there is this kind of frenzy where, you're listening to podcasts or you're going to church or you're just like talking to friends. There's this constant talk of you're almost at your breakthrough. A new season is coming. God is preparing you for something bigger. I think we're always framing life as though what is next is always better. We're always framing life as though the present moment is something that we have to struggle through, as though the present moment is something that we're just gritting our teeth and waiting to quickly pass, as though the present moment isn't worth being the present moment. The present moment isn't worth living. It's like there's something else that is better that's coming. I rarely ever speak to people who are like, oh man, like this is good. Like where I am currently, even if life were to end at this exact present moment, I would feel content with my life. I would feel like I lived it well. And I find that interesting because I don't know if it is conducive for us. And the reason why I say that is because we seem to have all agreed that there is a specific life, there's this nirvana, there's this perfect state of being that we're all pursuing, but none of us know when it's coming. But we've all decided that life will only be worth living when we get there. And I wonder if we're being kind of pushed to this life of constant pursuit and never learning what real contentment means. And you see this even in how when you have been praying for something, like your perfect job, you've been wanting this car, you've been wanting whatever it is that you want, think about how long it takes you before you're complacent about that very thing that you're praying for. Like, you kind of live in a sense of, oh, when I get this, like, then I'm really going to be happy. Like, then life will really be like, yeah, then it's going to be perfect. You're never going to hear me complain. But there's a school of thought, that says, like, the car that you're praying for is a car that you're going to have to get money to put fuel in. It's a car that you might need to fix. The marriage or the partner that you're praying for is a person that's going to push you to your limit, is a person that you're going to be fighting for and fighting with sometimes, is a person that might break your heart. The job that you're praying for is again going to push you to your limits, is again going to stretch you in ways that you didn't want. So when that school of thought essentially questions the idea of placing your happiness on material things and the idea of placing your happiness on something that is yet to come. And that school of thought is kind of putting the question of, what if the thing that you need to work on is you? What if the thing that needs to change is your perspective and not necessarily the circumstances? And I've been thinking about this idea a lot, and it's nothing new. This has been said multiple times in different ways. I just think we're grasping it is the thing that's really tricky. And even when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about, like, there's two celebrities that I really appreciate because they speak about this a lot, and they push this idea, like, almost every time that they have any sense of, like, airtime or that they're speaking in any kind of platform, and that's Will Smith and Jim Carrey. If you listen to interviews from Will Smith and interviews by Jim Carrey, there's this. Will Smith is more recent. Jim Carrey, it's been a while. But there's this recurring theme where they say, like, there is a top that you get to where you can't climb any further. Will Smith talks about, like, where you could buy whatever you want to buy, but you no longer have the appetite for it because you have amassed as much as you can and all the things that you've dreamt of. And now you've reached a peak where there's just you. And he's like, it's such an interesting place to be, because then you realize you are using all these other things to escape yourself, but that there aren't enough things in the world that you can buy to escape you, that eventually you will always have to meet you. And I realized in him saying that it's not the cliche thing of money won't bring you happiness. I think money can make you happy. I think money is very important, and I think even in the way that the world is structured now, because of capitalism and just because of how we live, it's impossible to do certain things without money. It's literally been made a necessity of our lives. And I think that's not what these guys are saying. I think what they're pushing at is more our internal state of being, and the idea that there are things and there are people and there are states that we are trying to reach where we will no longer have a need for anything. And this idea even reminds me of, and I wrote it down in my notes, I was like, there's a Bible verse that people often quote a lot, but they often just quote that one part and not the part that comes first. And it's this verse about, I can do all this through Christ who strengthens me. I want to read the full scripture. Not the full scripture, but part of it. This is Philippians 4. Verse 12 says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether fully fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Then it says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Christ who strengthens me. And I think it's such a deep, deep word because it speaks about, I think, the real definition of contentment, which is that you don't find contentment because you have reached a favorable circumstance in your life. Contentment is being able to be at peace in every situation, in all situations, whether favorable or not. But more than that, I think it is understanding the importance and the purpose behind different circumstances in your life. And I find it interesting that we always rush to verse 13. And you get some versions that say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's so true. But we miss that part that Paul is saying is that I know what it is to have everything I need. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to be hungry. I know what it is to be fully fed. And how to be content in all of those situations. And I think that's real resilience. I don't think you can really say that you're resilient if you can only master the courage of being grateful, if you can only master the courage of being content when life is going your way. I feel like we are almost living in a time where we are being taught that until we reach the sense of nirvana, we are in a process of waiting. But then I wonder, what if we never get to the thing that we're waiting for? Does that mean that life as it is now is not worth living? Does that mean that life in its current state, there is nothing that we can find? Not to fake gratitude. I'm not talking about the sense of like, oh no, I thank God. Like you know you don't mean it. I mean really evaluating your life, seeing the things that you wish could change, but still finding and mastering the art of loving a life that you wish was better. Truly honoring a life that you believe or that you think certain elements could give it more color, but finding ways to exist in it with still the same reverence. And I think what it ultimately speaks of is like the actual meaning of life, which is that you are here. Not what you have, but that you're here. Because when life ceases to exist is when you can no longer be here. And I think often we fixate so much on how we are here rather than the fact that we are here at all. you think about like how precious it is. And it's only when we lose it, or it's only when like someone in our life passes away, or we hear of a terrible accident, that we all start going, oh my God, guys, life is so precious. We need to really savor the moment. Oh my God, like when you're speaking to, your people, you never know when it's going to be the last time. Like something dramatic always has to happen for us to really get it. But that moment is always fleeting. It doesn't last long enough. Then we find ourselves being complacent again. And so I wonder if the secret to life is being able to appreciate it and to see it for what it is from moment to moment, without asking it to be more or less, without asking it to contour or change or morph itself into a moment that we feel is more favorable to us. Because we do have a way of romanticizing the future while resenting the present, where we're like, just wait until, and I was speaking to a friend of mine, and her thing is really like, she's in a season of just like, I'm just praying for marriage. And I have a love-hate relationship with that. I understand it because I think companionship is important, and I think being alone is tough sometimes. But I also think we're not taught how to be alone. And I think if you don't learn how to be alone and really savor being alone, you won't make for a good partner. If you don't learn gratitude in the moments of it just being yourself, in the moments of you coming home and cooking yourself a dinner, and you kind of wait, like you're like, oh, I'm not going to make a full meal. It's just me. It's like, why do you wait for more people or for certain circumstances before you can create full moments for yourself? And it's a different topic, and there's a friend of mine that I asked, to speak to about that, because I find is so good at that. He will come home and he will on a Sunday do a 7 colors meal, and it's just for him. And on the other hand, I know other people who are like, I'm not doing that just for me. No, I'm going to do that when I have a family. I'm going to do that when I have kids. And it's like, we're constantly living our life on like fast forward, like just pressing the remote to get to the other side, and not really figuring out what does it mean to live this moment in its fullest. And I know that we always say that, but I do think there's something about learning how to reframe the narrative. So when I was having that conversation with her, and she was saying like, I'm just ready. Like, I'm ready for this season to pass so I can meet my person. And I was saying, I don't think we're meant to live our lives for them to pass. I think we're meant to live our lives while being open for more that is coming, while creating space for whatever it is that we believe has to be part of our journey, but not necessarily waiting for this, whether it's your big break or whether it's your time to shine, for you to feel like what life is fully worth living. And it's something that I've been grappling with, and I think it looks different for all of us. But I do believe that at the end of it, we will all be tasked with the same question. We'll all be tasked with the same kind of probing of what did you do with the now that you had? Like, if you really take scope, like you really look at your life as it is now, is it really worthless just because you're not married? Is it really worthless just because you don't have your dream job? Is it really worthless just because you don't have the friends that you believe you're supposed to have? You don't have the clothes that you believe that you're supposed to have? And what if those things never come? Does that mean that your life is less worth living to the fullest? Or are there ways that from moment to moment, even in the most trying of circumstances, where you can kind of tear open, like as though it's a gift wrap, like tear open your life and find little glimpses of it that you're like, oh, this is pretty. This is beautiful. And I almost missed it because I wanted something else. I almost missed it because I thought there was something better on the horizon. And I questioned the idea of better. I questioned the idea of better. I think better, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. I think a better life is dependent on the person living it and not the life itself. And I say that because there is somebody who could swap lives with you and feel like they're in heaven. There's somebody who, if they got to live and do what you do, would feel like that is the best thing just because of their perception. And so I question this idea that with more, with better, with different, life becomes more worthy. I think life is worthy in and of itself. And I think the real key and the real state of nirvana is finding the worthiness of life in all its unfolding, in all its different shapes and sizes. Otherwise, you're in a constant state of just pushing and pushing and grinding and grinding and grinding, and then getting to the other side and not remembering what it was all for. And I say this even acknowledging different classes, even acknowledging different tax brackets, even acknowledging different living circumstances. I have met people who live in shacks who in that moment had more joy than I had living in my 2-story house. And I know that there are people who are so cynical, who feel like there's no way, but I've seen families sit together at a table with just like a simple meal of, I remember actually what it was. It was isishebo samazambane. Isishebo samazambane, if you don't know it, it's literally like a stew just with potatoes. There's no meat, there's nothing else. And they just had rice and that. And there was so much joy in that room and so much love in that room. And that family was a family of kids without parents. Their parents had died very young. But every time I'd go visit them, man, they sense of like being siblings and playing with each other. They had their fair share of problems, but I had come in feeling like I had such a better life and almost feeling sorry for them. And I left with such a different sense of what real joy means. And I don't mean happiness, I mean joy. Where there are definitely things that could be brought into that room that could maybe improve how the room looks. But the joy itself is something that you couldn't take away from them because it wasn't dependent on the room. It wasn't dependent on the food. It was dependent on themselves, on what they were able to share outside of that meal, in the love that they had for each other. And it's always stayed with me. It's always like kind of sat at the back of my mind because now I'm privileged enough to sit in rooms with people who I feel like have everything, and I listen to how much they complain. I listen to how much they're like, oh man, if I could just get like this brand of like a watch, of this brand of car and this. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And it's taught me that I think the pursuit is a scam. I think that the pursuit of better is a scam that is forged by capitalism. And I think if we don't learn to look around and really see, really see what is around us, really see what we have, we will never find what we're looking for. And it's a conversation that I even constantly have with my husband, who, you know, is such a, he's more of a homemaker than I am. Like he loves adding color to a house. Like right now, his thing is he started building an outside area with a pizza oven and a whole like some benches and a whole area that's just like very beautiful. And whenever he comes up with a new project, I'm always like, that's great. I think it's going to look nice. But don't forget to look at what is as well. Like, don't forget to look around at our home as it is now and still find it beautiful and still find it, you know, worthy. Don't get stuck in this idea that the improvements are what makes it better. We are what make it better. Being in it is what makes it better. And I say the same thing about our lives. I'm like, I know we will be richer. I know we will have more. I know there's more to come. But I don't think that our happiness is reliant on that. We are living the picket fence dream. We've got the white dog. We've got the 2 cars. We've got the whole thing. I think it's great. But I don't think that that is the answer to a full life. I think the answer to a full life, again, is in the one perceiving it. I think the worth of what you have is in how you are seeing it rather than what it is. There is somebody who can look at one thing and see its immeasurable beauty, and someone else can look at the same thing and see complete worthlessness. So what does that say about the thing? And I, went to dinner last night, and my friends and I were talking about, luxury. like Gucci bags, the really, really expensive stuff. And I found it interesting because we started talking about like sort of rating the bags, where somebody was saying, oh, but like a Marc Jacobs bag is so like, it's cheap luxury versus Gucci versus, which is, it's true, whatever. It's all subjective. But I was thinking about how sad it is that you get people who are like, oh, I can't wait. Like when you're living your life in pursuit of what other people consider to be real luxury or what other people consider to be real wealth, the lens of real wealth is constantly changing. Like by the time you get there, it's going to be the next thing. First, I'm sure initially Marc Jacobs was a big deal. And then it's changed. Then at some point, there's certain Gucci bags that are entry level. Oh, that's entry level luxury. Then you get to entry level and you're now waiting for this sense of like, oh, you've arrived. And people are like, oh no, bat doll, we've moved on. I'm like, guys, can you imagine how exhausting it is? By the time you own that brand of whatever it is, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, people have changed it now. There's a newer level. And so if what is better is constantly changing, what are we after? What are we constantly pursuing? If there's entry levels and there's when do we arrive? And is there an arriving? Are there people who have arrived? I don't know. Because we look at the richest people in the world and they're still in pursuit. They're still starting new projects. They're still divorcing and remarrying. So there's still this question mark of like, what is better? What is like, it's just, I think this week that Jeff Bezos was getting married and he had a massive wedding. You would think that these people would get to a point where they're like, okay, guys, it's enough. And so I think ultimately we have to be able to really do like a stock take of our lives and say, what am I really working towards? What am I really after? And if and when I get there, will that thing make my life more worthwhile than it is now? Will that thing make my life worth more? Worth celebrating more? Worth sharing more? Worth appreciating more? And it's not, guys, like the stuff I'm saying, it's not new. I just think that it is, I think we are in a trap that we are not seeing as people, where we are constantly trying to outshine one another. We're constantly comparing ourselves to people who we don't know, to people we've never met, to lives we've never lived, on an ideal that isn't even ours. Like, if you really think about the things you want, like, is that your idea of a good life, or is it somebody else's? Like, the thing you want, is it you that wants it, or is it something that you've been told you're supposed to want? Is what you're pursuing your life, or just the life that you've been told we're all supposed to have. And what happens when you get there and you realize it's not all it's cracked up to be? But more than that, even if you do get there and it is cracked up, it is what it's cracked up to be, why waste the present moment? If you are in a job where you're earning however much you're earning, but you can afford to have your own flat, you can afford to have food, you can afford to have a dinner with a friend once a month, but when you're at that dinner, all you and your friend are talking about are like the husbands that you still want to attract and the bigger houses that you still have. Are you really living, or are you just in a state of fast forwarding or trying to fast forward and trying to push to a place that you aren't at yet? I think it's a question, and it's a stock take that we all have to do. But I've really been questioning that in myself. I've really been thinking a lot about, like, who am I competing with? And what is a good life? Not according to capitalism, not according to my rich friends, not according to influencers, not according to even what the church says, not according to anyone else. Like, what is a good life to me? And what does it look like for me to love my life even when I don't think it's necessarily good? And if I don't think my life is necessarily good, why? Why don't I think it's good? If I'm breathing, if I'm inhaling oxygen in and out, and I get to be here, why wouldn't that be good? And what will it take for me to look at it and feel that it is good? And how, like, God created the heavens and the earth and said it is good. Like, I think of my life that way, like, where I want to wake up and I want to say it is good. Whatever it looks like, however I feel. Like, I'm currently sitting in this chair. I'm in excruciating pain because I had a procedure done. But as I'm speaking, like, I'm feeling what I'm talking about. I'm feeling the goodness of my life, just as it is. It doesn't mean that I have ceased to hope for more. It doesn't mean that you will not have desires. But it does mean that you can't let your life be run by what isn't here. You can't let your life be dictated by what you don't have yet, by what is maybe yet to come. I mentioned the friend who was talking about, like, how terrible it is being single and how they just want to get married. And I said, what if you die before you get married? Imagine you would have lived your entire life complaining, waiting for something that was never meant to come anyway. And that's so bleak, and that's not what I'm trying to push out. This is not supposed to be negative. I was trying to say, like, live now, man. Like, if you can afford to take a trip by yourself, go. Don't wait for a partner. Let the partner find you living. Let the job find you living. And more importantly, don't curse what you can't afford to lose. And what I mean by that is, if you are in a job that you have decided you no longer want, don't curse that job in pursuit of a new one. Don't start speaking badly about that job, thinking that you will hate your life in pursuit of a new one. Like, you can't hate yourself out of a good life. If that makes sense. Like you can't bash your current reality thinking that it's going to make the new reality come faster. It's not. There is a way that you can recognize that you are open for more while still honoring what you have now, while still honoring the season that you are in now. And we make this mistake a lot of like, oh my God, this place is so toxic. Oh my God, I can't wait to get out of here. It's like, that is a dangerous way of living. How about reframing? How about, I'm definitely ready. I believe I'm ready for a new season, but I'm still open to what this season is teaching me. I'm still open to what the season is, while preparing myself for the next. I love this quote by Eckhart Tolle, if I can find it now, where he talks about like, it says like, life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. And then he says, how do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at the moment. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at the moment. And I think that's so true. It's like we all have this idea that like this isn't how it's supposed to be. But says who? If it wasn't how it was supposed to be, then it would be something else. But the fact that it is what it is means that's what it's supposed to be. So what does that mean? How can you reframe the way that you're seeing it? And I think whatever philosophy you will read, whatever religion you believe, whatever God you believe in, whatever it is, it will keep saying the same thing. That you have to find a way to exist and honor the moment that is present before you are worthy of receiving the next moment. You have to be like clay and open to whatever this life is morphing you to be, and just be grateful for the experience of it. You know, I think of like the moment Jesus says, I could be doing something else right now. Like if it's possible, you could take this away, but let your will be done. I think there's such a beautiful lesson in that, in saying like, there isn't another way that I would choose for myself. But if this is how it should be, I will do it graciously. I will do it lovingly. And I will do it with honor. I have an idea that there's a better life out there. But since this is what it is right now, let me do it graciously. Let me do it with love. Let me do it with honor. Let me appreciate it. And I think in that is a moment where you actually allow yourself to open yourself up to a much bigger world that is more internal than it is external. I hope that's helpful. I don't think this message is for everybody, but I do think that it will reach those it needs to reach. And I do think even as we are in pursuit, we will always be pursuing. But I think the posture of our pursuing, the posture of our waiting is important. I don't think that we are meant to live life waiting. I think the things we want must find us living our lives. And I think we must find ways to create our best lives with the lives that we have now. And if we can do that, we may have just unlocked the secret to what it really means to be here and to do it well. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was as helpful to you as it is for me, especially if you are in a moment of, or you're in a season that really doesn't make sense. Like, really look at it, really open it up, and you might find some beautiful gems in there. You might find certain things that are quite precious. Like you see a lot of people who have made it, and they'll talk about like that one time where they still lived in that cottage with their grandmother, with the floors that used to creak. And there's a sense of like longing for the past. As they speak of like, oh man, life was so much simpler back then. Like now I have everything at my fingertips, but there was such a beauty in waiting for something. There was such a beauty in having to be patient. So a lot of the times, the things that we can't wait to pass are the things we end up missing, are the things we end up looking back on and going, oh man, I should have appreciated that more. What if you didn't miss it? What if you appreciated it now? And then you did it tomorrow, and you did it tomorrow, and tomorrow again, and tomorrow again, and tomorrow again. And as your life keeps expanding, so does your appreciation for it. Until next time, this is an extraordinary take. Goodbye.